Hello, ladies and gentlemen. You're welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Kobe Afol, and I'm super excited coming your way with the best content in the creative industry. Now, we're going to probe into the discussion or the issue between Sarkodie and Yvonne Nelson. It is of public knowledge that Yvonne Nelson has launched a book, and the title of the book is I Am Not Yvonne Nelson. I've read bits and pieces of the book, and some portions of the book that is of interest is the abortion case. In this probe, I'm going to read some portions of it and expound on it. And then Sarkodie's song that he has dropped, I'm also going to do an introspection into the content in the song. So let's do this together. The solace I sought in my humanitarian venture and opportunities in Nigeria was interrupted by a turmoil that started midly in my abdomen and climbed widely to my head and gave me sleepless nights. In my head was not physical pain, it was mental torture. I had gone for a pregnancy test to confirm that what becomes the most obvious conclusion for a sexually active woman who misses her manly flow. I was in the company of Karen, and when the test results was ready, I wasn't strong enough to open it. She did and declared the verdict. Charlie, it's day, she exclaimed. On an ordinary day, I would have laughed out loud, and that would have triggered a string of jolly conversations and jokes, but this was no laughing matter. It was a grim piece of information that was capable of turning my world upside down. I wasn't the only one responsible for the situation, so I called the man whose potent seed had germinated in me. His name is Michael Owusu-Addo, a renowned Ghanaian musician who is better known as Sarkodie. So this is where she mentions Sarkodie's name for the first time in the book. Sarkodie was a budding musician with the potential to become one of the biggest artists in Ghana and beyond. Now, the meaning of budding, it simply means something that is springing up, something that is beginning to emerge. At that time, however, the future looked uncertain, and his way through the maze of life still appears too foggy to predict. I put a picture of the narrative of a maze of life on the screen for you to see. Success was not guaranteed. He was still living with his mother and was not ready to carry a burden while he was being carried by his mother. So, according to the story, Yvonne Nelson narrates her point of view on what seems so obvious to her. Let's proceed. I wouldn't call what had developed between us a serious relationship. I gravitated towards people in the music industry. For the longest time in my life, music was my gateway from all the unpleasant things life threw at me. So I liked his talent. We started talking and got closer and extremely close. Then the unexpected happened. So in this part of the book, she narrated that they got very close to this point of what both of them did not expect to happen. Obviously, we know that it was the pregnancy, according to the book. Now let's jump to this side of the story. I called him on the phone and said we need to talk. He still lived with his mother, and this was not the kind of news to break in the house. I called him out of the house when I got to Tema, and we sat in Toyota RAV4. He drove a Toyota Matrix at the time, if my memory serves me right. I sensed the intensity of his emotions when I broke the news to him. I would hear his heart pounding, and when he finally found his voice, he faltered. His message was, however, unambiguous. He didn't want the pregnancy. So according to her, he didn't want the pregnancy. That would damage him and his career. The only option was to get rid of it. Whether or not his career and the uncertainty of life were the real reasons he could not afford to let me keep the pregnancy, I cannot tell. I later discovered that he had a girlfriend who was attending university outside the country. It was in her absence that he got involved with me, and things got dangerously complicated. So in this context, she is trying to paint Sarkodie as a person who was into multiple relationships. You get it? So whatever it was, his stance was clear, and I was left to evaluate my own options. The first thing that hit me when he said no to keeping the pregnancy was my own life. I had grown up without a father in my life. I had often been reminded of how I had been born by mistake. I was still wondering if the man whose name I bore was my father. So we move on to this side of the story. As I wondered what to do next, a friend of mine said she knew of a certain pill that I could take and get rid of the fetus before it festered. She was in the hostel and had a room to herself. That made her hostel the ideal place to do it. If I tried it at home, my mother would know about it, and hell would come crashing down on an already troubled earth. So one weekend, I visited her and took the pill. I swallowed one and injected the other in my vagina. So that is that part of the story. It continues by saying that the few days that followed were some of the most excruciatingly painful moments of my life. It was only after I gave birth that I was able to get a condition to liken the pain I felt to. The pain came with severe bleeding that lasted so long that I became weak, right? So let's move to this side of the story too. Keeping the pregnancy was not an option. Undertaking another self-medication was also not an option. I agreed with Sarkodie that this time we had to do it in a hospital or health facility. Again, that friend of mine had a recommendation. It was a facility in Mamprobi, and on the appointed day, Sarkodie drove me there with his manager and they left. So according to her and the story, Sarkodie drove her to the hospital. But in Sarkodie's song, he didn't allude to that knowledge in this book. We'll get to that in a bit. So I think we'll end here. We read bits and pieces of the side of the story with regards to Yvonne Nelson. Now we are going to go into Sarkodie's new single that he has dropped concerning the response to some bits and pieces of the book regarding his side of the story. So we go in a bit.
Someone pay me the ajame, and then I would that me. Would the mommy be and I would the come a kwame. Mommy this what that me. Someone pay me the jame, mommy cool. No be for fraud that me. Who jam me on one crummy? Yeah, baby girl make you not try me. Yeah, don't try me. I never thought I was gonna be on this wave, cause I was ready to take a couple things to my grave. First off, let me clap for you, baby, you brave, but you can't pick and choose what to say, please behave. Or be on some so if you wanna talk, you gotta tell the world every other nigga you fuck. You can't just play the victim and paint a picture like you were just looking for love. I'm on the dicks that you suck. I'm not gonna sit here and lie, we had a thing. First time I thought you were cool till I had a hint. Now me face the boys I clock it with the baddest bitch. That's a sena yen since I saw Cuban links. I was trying to stay away from you, but then you came. I'm the one to be blamed. Okay, of course I thought that you were trying to start another drama. I'll be boy from the street, I know the game. Yes, I wasn't ready, but then I told you to keep it. What said with school, I woke up, you gotta complete it. To be very honest, till today I don't believe it. Cause me cause I'm a doctor, make sure you say you don't need it. After conversation, now that you sent me a text, so I down to be with Dr. B, but you know he's the best. So don't you make it seem like I was the one pushing you for abortion, cause that be the only part to make a fence.
Alright, so when you listen to the chorus of the song, Sarkodie makes an assertion about Yvonne Nelson. And I'm saying Yvonne Nelson because even though he didn't mention his name in the song, we can make inferences because of the trend of things that he talked about in the song. The first thing he talked about in the chorus is the fact that Yvonne Nelson had multiple partners, according to him. Secondly, Yvonne Nelson had been lying to him. And thirdly, that Sarkodie went through an emotional turmoil. Fourthly, that Sarkodie has a life with another partner, so Yvonne Nelson should leave him alone. And in the verse 1, Sarkodie was speaking about the issue, the bit of it that dealt with the character of Yvonne Nelson. Some people are of the opinion that there was a bit of character assassination there. Other people also have the assertion that it was needful because that was a response to his point of view about the story. So that is about it. And we go into the fact that he admits that there was something between them and probably there could be a pregnancy out of it, even though he did not emphatically say that he believed it, but he played out with it. Now this is his point of view. I think that he didn't communicate what he was thinking about the whole story to the lady. Also, take note of the fact that Sarkodie alludes to the fact that he wasn't ready. He also said that I told you to keep it, and there was a bit of point of view with respect to whether she was in school or not in school. Now, in her book, she made mention of the fact that she had to graduate. That's the word that she used. And Sarkodie also talked about complete. So there's a difference between graduate and complete. We all know that when you complete school, you have to stay in the house for some time before the graduation comes. So it could be of a bit of uncertainty as to the timing of the issue. Is in controversy. So that is on that side. But narrowing down to the specific issue, I could get a sense that most likely Yvonne Nelson has completed writing her academic work, but she was left with the thesis to complete. So even though she has completed her academic work, there was a thesis aspect of it to complete. And that is perhaps what brought the controversy. So one party feels that you are still in school, another party feels that I've completed school but I'm yet to graduate. This is not really part of the academic work. At this point, I want to introduce my very own brother, Kojo Afo, to share his thoughts with us.
Hi lovely people, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on the time you are listening to this. My name is Kojo Afo and I would like to express few thoughts on the trending issue between one of the finest actresses who brought light to the Ghana movie industry, and she's Yvonne Nelson and Michael Usu Ado, also known as Sarkodie, who is arguably the best rapper to come out of Africa. So I'll begin by saying, emotions aside, I don't side with any party as regards this issue because there are lapses in both stories. Yeah. Moving on, I like to base my submission on character assassination, which is actually the malicious and unjustified harming of a person's good reputation. Yeah, and as we all know, in businesses, goodwill adds value to a brand, and also in accounting, in as much as it is difficult to define goodwill, it indirectly generates cash flows for firms and enterprises. That's brand name, business reputation, customer loyalty, domain names, etc. So from my direction, I like to say I feel like as humans as we are, we all have secrets, some which are extremely dark and bitter. Yeah, but then in all this, we keep our heads up and stay focused on the game, yeah, because that's the ultimate goal. Because at the end of the day, it's a murky world and we all mess up at some point in time, yeah. But then I have this thought that you should not let what happened during the day ruin the beautiful view of the stars and moon at night. Honestly, I feel like this issue has brought a form of dent to both brands and in the long run will affect future deals and even current deals, yeah, because stakeholders would not like to associate its company with a controversial brand. Yeah, so further to this, looking at how established both parties in the entertainment industry, I feel like they do have legal teams, hence they are aware of the implications of character assassination. So I would like to end by saying, regardless of the fact that this issue is showbiz, I want to see this case in court. Thank you and enjoy the rest of your day. Bye.
So that is all I will share with you. Thank you so much for sticking and staying with us. This is our point of view on the issue. My name is Kobiafo. Thank you so much for joining us. Special thanks also goes to Kojo Afol, who contributed to the subject matter. Now, production by Banwe Studios and George Ajiman. Thank you. Gracias por ver. Tu veré prontos. Adios.